So before we start the proceedings for the day, what I would do is that there were a couple of questions which were raised yesterday, for which I would like to give some more clarity before I formally hand it over to Karthik. The first question was, what is the margins that we would charge for people who are selling options? So we have a margining mechanism which is based on a portfolio approach. So if it is a simple naked position that you have, in the sense if you have just sold options and if you don't have any other position, be it a future or be it any other option. So what we will do is, see, we as part of the portfolio approach, there are various scenarios. So what we will do is we will take the maximum of those scenarios, the numbers, the margin numbers which will come out of the scenarios. So in those scenarios, we use parameters ranging parameters which consider a change in volatility and change in price. So it throws out the maximum risk for that particular portfolio. Here in this case, we are talking about a single position that you have sold, or there is something called a short options minimum charge. So there is a minimum charge that we would charge on every short options position. So the higher of the number which is thrown out by the span system or the short options margin is what we will charge. Plus there will be an exposure margin, plus there will be an additional margin. So if you are trading gold options today on NSE platform, you will be charged 9% for a naked short position. Suppose extending the same thing to futures, today if you're trading futures, the margins are around 13%. But today Karthik is going to explain a concept called delta. So here what it means is, I've talked about a portfolio margining approach. So here let us assume that you have a futures position and an options position. On day one we said futures products are linear. So what I mean by linear is, if your underlying is moving by X%, by and large your future will also move by X%, whereas options don't have to move in line with your underlying. So here what happens is, as part of the portfolio approach, if you have a futures position and an options position, the span will give the margin benefit depending on the delta of the option, which Karthik is going to explain vis-a-vis futures. Futures delta is 1, which again Karthik will explain today. So there it gets netted, but still if you have a short position, you will be charged a short options minimum charge. And we also have something called a net buy premium, which is the current value of the option, which gets added to your margin amount. This is with respect to what we would charge if you're selling an options. Second thing is, I believe Surendra Mehta was asking if there is a final position where, let's say Mr. Surendra Mehta is buying 10 kilos of gold. He has got a long position in options, and Nagendra has got a short position. So our expiry cycle is, from the expiry day, the settlement will happen on the 6th day. So you people should here understand and appreciate the fact that why we have given 6 days. The reason for giving 6 days is we want to have a settlement in line with the existing futures settlement. So I will, now that I have a short position where I have to deliver 10 kilos of gold, on the day of expiry, if I don't have the metal with me, and if Mr. Surendra Mehta has exercised his option and I am forced to deliver the metal, I have 6 days to buy the metal from the market or from NSE's future system and deliver it again back in the system to Mr. Surendra Mehta. And in case I don't deliver, so that was the question Mr. Surendra Mehta was asking. So please understand that all the transactions carried out on National Stock Exchange of India will be guaranteed by the Clearing Corporation of NSE. So what it means is, if either of the parties, be it the buyer, be it the seller, if they don't fulfill their obligations, there are standard penalty measures. But before imposing the penalty measures, Clearing Corporation will do its best to ensure delivery. If delivery doesn't happen, there are some standard guidelines which are defined as part of our contract specs, which we will enforce and ensure that either of the party, the non-defaulting party, does not lose because of the default by one of the members. This is the second question. The third question is on the spot prices. So as we are all aware, or for most of you who are new to this gold, unlike the equity market, you don't have an electronic underlying market. So IBJA is one entity which publishes spot prices, but there is no electronic form. Surendra Mehta, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no channel where you will have a continuous feed. So as an exchange, what we have done is we have appointed an agency called Cogencies. So what they do is they poll, talking to various bullion dealers, jewelers. So SEBI has prescribed the list of participants, the category of participants that you should connect with to arrive at the price. So they talk to them, they arrive at the price, and we disseminate the price twice in a day. So that can be a stale price, but having said that, that is the best that we can do in the absence of an electronic online spot market system. This is to answer the three questions for which my team felt that we should have greater clarity. And before I hand it over to Karthik, as discussed yesterday, so Karthik is going to come up with three questions: simple, easy, or simple, moderate, and difficult. So whoever wants to respond, you use the same channel that you have used to log in, and in the box where you normally give your question, we would appreciate if you can say whether it is an easy question. You type easy hyphen, and it's a multiple choice question, so give your right answer. Suppose for easy the answer is A, you can type easy hyphen A. For moderate, if it is B, moderate hyphen B, and difficult hyphen D, whatever. And we would request your mobile numbers to be genuine and email addresses to be perfect, so that somebody from our marketing team will get in touch with you guys the moment we find that you are the first person to give the right answer. So enjoy the day, enjoy the session. And Karthik, good evening, all over to you, Karthik. Karthik can't hear you.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, Karthik.
Yeah. So good evening, Nagendra, and good evening, everyone else. I'm happy to note that people have joined for the third consecutive day. I think the numbers are also very encouraging. Thanks for that additional clarity that you provided, Nagendra. I think it kind of helps many people who had all those queries muddled up yesterday. So that whatever you discussed brings a lot of clarity. So thanks again for that. So let's start. Let me share my content. Give me a second. I'll just share my content.
And Karthik, we will ensure that NSE staff are not eligible to answer to these questions. Okay?
Yeah. Thanks. Nagendra, is the content visible?
Yes, Karthik, please go ahead, please.
Great. Okay. So today the agenda is to discuss, one of the most important aspects of options trading. This would be the option Greeks. But before we do that, let's have a quick recap on whatever we discussed on day 1 and day 2. Okay, so this will be a brief recap just to refresh and jog through your memory. To reiterate, call option buyers has the right to buy the underlying at the strike price. The call option seller has the obligation to sell the underlying at the strike price. To your left, what you see is the risk reward structure of a call option buyer. I want you to appreciate the fact that for a call option buyer, the risk is limited to the extent of the premium he's paid, while his reward can potentially tend to virtually any number. What you see for the call option buyer, his profit profile is exactly the mirror image of this is exactly the profit and loss profile for a call option seller. For a call option seller, the maximum money that he will make is restricted to the amount of premium received, but his loss can tend his losses can extend virtually to infinity, right? And so this is the risk and reward payoff risk and reward structure for a call option buyer and a seller. For the in a put option, the put option buyer has the right to sell the underlying at a strike price. The seller has the obligation to buy the underlying at the strike price for having received the premium from the put option buyer right? So on the left, what you see is the risk and reward structure for a put option buyer. As you can see, when the underlying prices decreases, that is from right to left, the profit of a put option buyer increases. On the losses side, the loss is restricted to the extent of the premium he has paid to the seller. The mirror image of this is applicable for the put option seller. The profit is restricted to the extent of the premium received. As and when the underlying decreases, the price of the underlying decreases, the put option seller starts to make a loss, right? So this is about the call and put option which we introduced on day one. A quick refresher on the jargons that we discussed yesterday. Strike price is the anchor price, at which a buyer and a seller enter into an options agreement. There are many strikes that the exchange introduces at regular price intervals. So we saw the option chain yesterday where there were multiple strikes listed. The underlying is the asset based on which our derivative contract is structured. Lot size is the minimum quantity one has to transact in if he wishes to trade in the derivatives market. Expiry date is what really sets the derivative apart from the underlying asset. The expiry date is when the contract ceases to exist. All settlements have to happen on the expiry date, right? Then we looked at the moneyness of an option. Basically, there are three different levels of moneyness for a given strike: in the money, at the money, and out of the money options, right? And we also discussed how we can differentiate between these three moneyness mathematically, right? So that and finally we discussed the premium. As I said, the entire option theory is based on option premium. We understood that the premium is the price that the buyer pays to the seller, against which he receives the right to buy or sell the asset. Premium is the price that the seller receives to get, and by virtue of receiving that premium, he gets into an obligation to either sell or buy the underlying. Right. So most importantly, premium is not a static number. Premium is dynamic. It is a tradable instrument, and there are multiple factors which influences the movement of premium. Right. So yesterday we briefly looked at two of such variables. One was the news flow and the potential impact it has on the direction of the underlying. The second was time. Right. Now, obviously, we will dig much deeper into this particular aspect in today's session. Now, here's the question for the first day. Nagendra, is the question fully visible?
Yeah, we can see the question. Yes.
Entire question, right? Okay. It's just that I have a problem seeing the question. Let me move my. Okay, no problem. Nagendra, if you don't mind, can you please read this question out for me? It's just that it's not visible.
Okay. With respect to a call up, this is the easy question for the day.
Yeah.
With respect to a call option, if the spot price minus strike price is positive, with respect to a call option, if the spot price minus strike price is a positive value, then the strike is said to be option A, at the money option, option B, out of the money option, option C, in the money option, option D, none of the above.
Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Thanks, Nagendra. So that's the first question for the day. We will, as we discuss more concepts, we will, post two more questions. Hopefully, you get the answers for all these right. All right. So Let's start with, we discussed that there are multiple factors which affect the the premium for a call and a put option. Uh, these factors collectively are called the option Greeks. Now, there are four Greeks that you need to know: the delta of an option, the gamma of an option, the theta of an option, and the vega of an option, right? So these four are the most important Greeks. There are multiple Greeks, by the way. It's not just restricted to the four Greeks that I mentioned above. But most of the traders need not have to know about the other Greeks that impact the premium. What you need to know is the delta, gamma, vega, and the theta, right? So the delta is the first one that we will discuss. Uh, Here, what you see is the snapshot of, the underlying here is Nifty. I've taken Nifty as an example. We are looking at the call option, and the strike price is 9,100. Right. So I've taken what I want you to observe here is the time, and the price at which Nifty was trading, and the last traded price. Okay, so at 10:42 a.m., Nifty was roughly around 9,070. 9,100 call option was trading at 42 rupees 90 paisa. I've taken this from the NSE website. At 10:47 a.m., Nifty was trading at 9,066. The same option, that is 9,100 call option, was trading at 40 rupee 95 paisa. Right? Now at 10:52 a.m., Nifty was trading at 9,072. The same call option was trading at 43.15. Right? So it's all a matter of few minutes, but different rates for the premium. Right? By looking at this snapshot, we can draw three main conclusions. One, the premium changes with respect to change in underlying. So as you can see, as and when the underlying changed, the premiums also changed. That is the first observation. The second observation, the call option premium increased when the underlying price increased, right? So when you look at this, look at the difference in premium from the second and the third snapshot. When Nifty was at 9066, premium was 40 rupee 95 paisa. When Nifty went to 9072, few minutes later, the premium shot up to 43 rupee 15 paisa, right? So that's what the second point here means. The premium of a call option increases when the underlying price increases. As a corollary of that, the premium of a call option decreases when the underlying price decreases, right? So that's what you observe in the first and the second snapshot. Nifty decreased from 9070. From that, it decreased to 9066, and the premium reduced from 4290 to 1495, right? So, as and when the underlying changes, the premium also changes, right? Fair enough. So let's look at this from a gold perspective. This is the numbers for gold options are arbitrary. We still don't have the contract, but I've approximately put some values here just to drive the concepts across. Assume gold is trading at 46. So no, this is not an assumption. The gold was trading at 46,120 gold futures, right, in the morning. You as a gold trader expect gold to hit 46,500 by end of day. Okay, so that's the point of view that you have. It's trading at 120 now. You expect it to hit 46,500 by end of day, right? The call option is 4600 call option is trading at 250 at this point. What is it that you'll expect this option to trade when gold hits 46,500? Couple of minutes ago, one thing we concluded, when the underlying price increases, the call option also increases, right? So we know the premium in change. In fact, we know that the premium will increase, but the question is by how much, right? This is exactly where the delta of an option comes into play. Delta helps us measure the rate of change of premium for every 1 point change in the underlying. right? So that's a very, very straightforward and one of the most easiest Greeks to understand. For every 1 point change in the underlying, what is the likely change in the premium is what delta tells us, right? Delta itself is a number which ranges from 0 to 1 for a call options, for a call option, right? Some traders prefer to look at it from a 0 to 100 scale as well. So if the delta value is 50.55 on a 0 to 1 scale, it's as good as delta being 55 on 0 to 100 scale. So it's really up to you on which convention you want to follow. But yeah, so what you need to understand is delta is a number which ranges from 0 to 1 if you prefer that, or 1 to 100, right? 0 to 100. For the sake of this conversation, we'll stick to 0 to 1 convention. That's one of the most popular conventions for understanding delta. Okay, so let's go back to the gold example. 46-100 call option. Let's assume the delta is 0.55. What does this mean? This means that for every 1 point increase in the underlying, the premium is expected to change by 0.55, right? So let's go back to the previous slide. In this case, we expect gold to increase from 46,120 to 46,500, right? So that is a 320-point change. Now we know that the delta of this option is 0.5, right? So the question was, what is the likely change in the premium, right? So for every 1 point change in the underlying, the premium is expected to change by 0.5. So the overall change in underlying is 320 points. So you multiply the delta with the change in underlying, you get the overall change in premium. So all we have to do here is multiply the delta, which is 0.5, into 320. So that is 160, right? We know that the call option premium increases with the increase in underlying. Therefore, the new premium will be 250 plus 160. That's equal to 410. So that's how delta helps us understand the change in premium. So I know that for many of you who are probably trying to understand Greeks for the first time, I find this a little complicated. Greeks is slightly on the complicated side, but trust me, if you just pay some attention and go through these examples one couple of times, it'll be much easier for you to understand. On the face of it, it may look complicated, but really it is not. Right? Yeah.
I think for people who are who want to use delta, I mean, for them, if they understand the concepts and if delta value is known to them, right, then it is an easy process, right? I mean, we don't have to get into the mechanics of how delta is computed.
No, you don't.
Suppose we get to know the value is X, delta is X. That is what they want to know.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So where can they get these values, Karthik?
Okay, so I'll get to that a little shortly. Yeah, so
Perfect.
I'm going to discuss that as well.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. Right. So that's how delta helps us in estimating the likely change in premium. Okay, so this is for a call option. Now let's look at the same example. Now instead of expecting the premium to expecting the underlying to increase by 320, let's see what happens if the movement is on the other direction. That is, we expect a 320-point downward move, right? Now remember, we are talking about a call option. Now a call option premium increases when the underlying price increases, and the premium reduces when the underlying price reduces, right? Now we expect the premium to reduce here because the underlying price is also reducing, right? The reduction is to the extent of 320 points. The delta is 0.5. So because it's a reduction, we have a negative sign associated with 320. So 0.5 into minus 320 is minus 160. Therefore, the premium will be 250 and the new and minus 160, which is equal to 90, right? 250 minus 160, 90. So you're with a reduction of 320 points in the underlying, the new delta is expected to be 90, right? So who actually decides the delta value? So Nagendra, this is where I think your question comes into play. Delta is a very delta along with the other Greeks like the vega, theta, and the gamma. They are all intrinsic attributes of an option, right? So you get the value of all these Greeks from a calculator called the Black-Scholes options calculator, right? So there are plenty of Black-Scholes calculator available online. There is one on Zerodha website also. There is you can use that. Or Nagendra, does NSE provide calculator?
Yeah. So see, I was just connecting with Gauri. We have a provision to display all the Greeks on our trading terminal in the Now platform.
Now platform, yeah.
So we will revisit that. We will try to get our logic right, because whatever we have done, it was for Nifty and Bank Nifty.
Okay.
See, from a concept perspective, the formula perspective, it doesn't change. Black-Scholes is the same.
It's the same.
So
yeah.
we just wanted to ensure the right set of parameters is taken for volatility, the interest rates, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we will work with you offline. We will take inputs from Surendra's team also.
Yeah.
And then maybe we will start publishing the Greeks on our trading terminal.
Yeah.
And till we do that, as you rightly said, since there are a lot of offline calculators which can be downloaded, right?
Correct, yeah. Downloaded, or it's an online thing. You can just go punch
perfect.
it. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
Just to point out to one thing, Nagendra, see, the option calculator, there's a small difference when the underlying is a spot market versus
Correct.
the underlying when it's a futures market. So that's the only difference that you will have to incorporate when you provide this, right? So yeah, so like I was saying, delta and all the other Greeks, they're all intrinsic attributes of an option. You can use a Black-Scholes calculator. Plenty of it is available.
When you say an intrinsic, Hindi mein, how do you say that intrinsic?
I would be the wrong guy for that. So maybe Surendra.
Or are you saying it is part of the options values personality? I mean, they're the attributes of the option.
Yeah, they are the attributes of
the option premium.
Yeah. So
Surendra Mehta ji, I hope you have got this intrinsic attribute.
So intrinsic basically means the real value.
No, let me put this way.
किसी भी प्रोडक्ट का एक
let me put this way.
Mobile, the intrinsic value of it cannot be 10 lakhs rupees.
But it is an intrinsic attribute, not an intrinsic value. It's an attribute.
Okay, so let's say you buy a car. You have certain intrinsic attributes of this car. There is, the engine capacity. There is the capacity of the petrol tank. How many seaters? What is the maximum speed it can travel at? So these are all intrinsic attributes of a car. Likewise, in an option, all the Greeks are its intrinsic, attributes.
Okay.
That's what I meant by intrinsic value attributes. Yeah. Right. So you can use any Black-Scholes calculator, and you can get all these values for the delta value for any option, any strike. Right. But here's the table that you can see here is a rough measure of where the delta is likely to exist, right? If the option is between in the money and at the money, the delta is likely to be anywhere between 1 and 0.5. At the money options always have a delta of around 0.5. At the money to out of the money options, the delta value is expected to be between 0.5 to 0.1, right? So in the money options have high delta value, out of the money options have low delta value. I would like to just go back to the previous screen, right? So when I took this example of gold, gold was trading at 46,120, and we strike at, and we were talking about a 4600 call option. So I assume the delta to be around, right, 0.5. That is because it is at the money option, right? So if you can keep this table in mind, that will give you a rough perspective of where the delta will be. Of course, when you use a Black-Scholes calculator, you'll get the exact value of delta. While we are talking about delta, it is also important for you to know that when you build option strategies, right? When you build option strategies, you can add up the deltas and figure out the overall delta of the position. If it sounds confusing for today, just leave it. We will look at this tomorrow when we look at multiple leg option strategies, right? So let's look at the delta of a put option, right? The delta of a put option ranges from -1 to 0, right? The negative sign here is to indicate the fact that when the underlying value increases, the put premium decreases. So remember that whenever the underlying value increases, the value of the put premium decreases and vice versa, right? So let's go back to the same gold example. I'm talking about 46, gold is trading at 46,100. I'm talking about the 46,100 put option. Let's say it's trading at 200. If gold increases to 46,300, then the premium of put option reduces from 200 to, let's say, 120. Okay, I'm just giving a rough example just to convey the fact that the put premium reduces when the underlying increases, right? On the other hand, if gold price declines from 46,100 to say 45,900, then 46,100 put will increase, let's say, to 350 rupees. All these numbers are, the premium numbers are just arbitrary. I've used it to convey the concept, right? So let's do some math around this and figure out how exactly this works, right? So currently gold is trading at 46,120. This is the price that I took in the morning. Assume 46,000 put option is trading at 250. What do you think will happen what do you think will happen to this option when gold reduces to, let's say, 45,800, right? Now, obviously, there is a decline in gold price. Therefore, the put premium will increase. We just discussed that. Now, to what exact extent will the premium increase from 250? For that, we need to use the delta of the option. Delta of 4600, 46,000 put is around 0.5, minus 0.5. Expected change in underlying is minus 300. Current premium is for 46,000 put option is 250. Therefore, the expected change in premium would be, this has to be 300. Sorry, I think that was a typo. Minus 300 into minus 0.5, which will give us plus 150. Therefore, the new premium will be 250 plus 150, which is 400, which is exactly in line with what we discussed. As and when the underlying decreases, the put premium increases, right? So I would like to point out one more thing here. I think.
Hello?
Hello, yeah. Nagendra? Nagendra, did you try saying something? Or did I lose the voice? Anyway, so I'd like to point out one more thing here. On day one, we spoke about. Nagendra, is my voice audible? Is it?
It's audible, Karthik.
It's audible, is it? Okay, fine. So on day one, I think one of the question was how can we use these options to hedge our position. I think that came from one of the gold traders. So this is, a very classic example of how you can hedge your underlying position. Let's say you have 1 kg of gold piled up, in your inventory, and you expect the gold prices to decline. Then obviously, if you buy a put option, you know that by virtue of decline in price, the value of put increases. So you can structure a trade in such a way that whatever is the loss that you would face on the decline in gold price in the in physical form, you can compensate for that by buying these put options, right? So that's one of the most easiest and simplest way to hedge your uh, gold inventory, which you have offline, right? So just by buying put option. In fact, I know that there are few gold traders who, in the Western world, who regularly buy put option as an expense, right? So they buy it as an insurance. They just treat it as an expense, and the purpose of that is to just cover them in case gold price decreases, right? So this happens on crude oil as well, right? So here is the second question. This is a moderate question. What is the likely delta value of at the money put option? Is it plus 0.5, minus 0.5, plus 1, or minus 1? Okay, I'll leave that for a couple of seconds. Maybe you can relook at it and submit your queries. Can I move the slide, Nagendra? Saurabhji, Surendraji, can I?
Yes, Karthik.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So before we proceed, I want to take a minute to showcase this particular graph. There is a particular so what you see on the x-axis is the transition of an option from ATM to ITM. So look at the center of the graph where it says ATM. If the underlying price increases, or let's say if the option transitions from at the money to in the money, then look at the blue line. That's the delta graph of a call option. The delta increases from somewhere around half to 1. Okay. Now look at the red line. When the red line represents the delta of a put option. When the strike transitions from at the money to in the money option, the delta of the option transitions from -5 to -1. Okay, the same is applicable when the option transitions from at the money to out of the money. A call option loses its delta value from -5 to almost 0. The same thing can be observed in the put option as well, right? So I'll share notes with you, links with where you can read more about this, probably today or tomorrow. So if you have any doubts, you can always refer back to those notes. In fact, if you have queries, you can ask your queries there, and I'll be more than happy to respond back to that. Even if not today or tomorrow, even a month later, you can come back and ask. There is no problem. We'll get back to those answers, get back to your queries at a later point.
Karthik, one fundamental question. So when you're looking at delta of an option, so it is a value which is determined based on the movement of your underlying, right? So it's for a simple reason that we are going to launch 10 strikes, right? So there is an ITM, 10 ITMs. So
Correct,
on
yeah.
day one, let's say that whatever ATM is there for a call option, I'm going to start with 0.5.
Yeah.
And suppose it moves up by 1 strike, 250
Okay.
strike interval, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then that becomes the ATM, and the value which was assigned to the previous ATM now gets transferred to the new ITM, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So basically the values are predetermined depending on the moneyness, and when the underlying keeps moving,
Yeah.
you accordingly revisit your hedging strategy and keep
Absolutely.
having your trading mechanism in place, right?
Correct. Absolutely. In fact, there are hedging strategies where called delta hedged strategies. So delta hedge strategies is in a delta hedge strategy, what you strive to do is to maintain a delta neutral position. I know I'm talking about a lot of new terms, but because you asked, it's very relevant to speak about them. So if the objective is to maintain a delta neutral position, then you will have to constantly adjust your position so that the overall delta is neutral, right? So we will talk about this in brief tomorrow, but this is just to answer your question, right? So fair enough. So let's move forward. So delta can also be used for a another very interesting purpose. Not many traders actually use delta from this perspective, but I personally find this a very extremely useful use case for delta. Whenever an option buyer wants,
Karthik,
sorry,
what is probability? See, I've done statistics in my as my major, so I want you to explain probability in a very simple term, okay?
Okay, so in the best that I can think of is
Tossing a coin,
tossing a coin, or let's say India Pakistan is playing a match. What is the chance that India is going to win this game?
100% there. Come on, that's not the right thing. You have to change the example. India Pakistan match, it's always India.
It's always the probability is 100%.
Correct. Correct. But when you toss a coin, so
Yeah.
the probability of heads versus tails is 50%.
Absolutely.
Correct?
Absolutely.
So the likelihood of an event
Absolutely.
happening. Surendra Mehta ji in Hindi, please.
हाँ, प्रोबेबिलिटी मतलब जैसे आप एक कॉइन टॉस करते हैं तो 50% के समय हेड्स आ सकता है, 50% टेल आ सकता है, तो उसको प्रोबेबिलिटी कहते हैं. तो उस प्रोबेबिलिटी को ऑप्शन टूल में किस तरह से यूज करना वो कार्तिक जी हमें बताएं.
So so probability is just the likelihood of an event occurring, right? So delta can be used as a measure of probability when you're trading options, right? Now see, when a buyer buys a contract, he wants the premium to increase. When an option seller sells the contract, he wants the premium to reduce. That's when he'll make money, right? So if the premium is expected to increase, that means the option trader wants the option to transition from in the money, from out of the money to in the money. That's when he'll be profitable. When for an option seller, he wants the opposite. He wants the option to transition from in the money to at the money or out of the money. That's when the premium will reduce. Now, when you look at the delta, you can look at it as a indicator of this probability, right? For example, if the delta of an option is 0.3, that means to say there is a 30% chance for this option to transition from out of the money to in the money.
In the money.
As a corollary of that, there is a 70% chance that this this option will transition from this option will stay out of the money, right? So
70% chance the option seller will retain the premium.
Correct, exactly. So this is is what I've stated there. It's good for the sellers. Yeah. So look at the delta of an option. If it is 0.3, that means to say you as a buyer will have to think twice because there's only 30% chance that it will transition to in the money. Opposite of that is 70% chance that it will stay out of the money. If an option has a delta of 0.8, that means to say that this option will expire in the money with a 80% chance. Only 20% chance for the seller. So sellers should avoid such options, right? Because the odds are against them. So look at, if not for anything, use delta as a measure for probability, right? So that's about delta. I hope that basic concept is clear. Now so let's talk about the second creek, which is the gamma, right? So we said that as and when the underlying change, the premium changes, right? The change in premium is dictated by what is the delta of that option. Now the thing is, along with the premium, delta also changes. Look at the graph on the that you see here. As and when the option moves from at the money to some other strike and some other strike and then in the money, the delta is also constantly moving. It's not a static number, right? So that means to say that because there is a change in delta, that means to say there is a rate at which it changes, right? So the rate at which the delta changes is dictated by the second Greek called the gamma, right? So gamma is also called the second order derivative. Let's not get into that, but all I want you to understand is delta changes as and when the underlying price changes, and the rate at which delta changes is dictated by the gamma of the option, right? So, like I said, for every 1 point change in the underlying, what is the change that delta will reflect is given by gamma. Now, gamma is a positive number. Like when we were talking about delta, we said it is plus 0.5 and minus 0.5 for call and put respectively. Now, unlike that, gamma is always a positive number, right? And gamma is usually a very, very small number, right? So for all practical purposes, it's okay to assume that gamma is more or less constant because it's a small number, change in gamma is also very small. Okay, let's take an example. I think this will help you understand the way gamma works. Gold is currently trading at 46,100. We are looking at 46,250 strike price. We are looking at a call option. Because this is 46,250 compared to 46,100, this is slightly out of the money option. Let's say the premium of this option is 80 rupees. Delta for this, remember it's a slightly out of the money, so it has to be less than 0.5. So therefore delta is around 0.3. Gamma for this option is 0.025. Two things to note here. One, gamma is a very small number. Two, gamma is always positive. Now we expect the underlying to move by 100 points. That is, we expect gold to move from 46,100 to 46,200. Now the question is, what is the new premium? Now we also know the delta changes. So what is the new delta? And what happens to the moneyness? Right now it is OTN. So what is the new moneyness of this option, right? So this is a fairly easy thing to solve for. Change in premium we know is delta into the change in spot price. So delta is 0.3, spot price we expect 100-point change. So you multiply that, you will get the change in premium, which is 30. Premium was 80 rupees. So change is 30 rupees. So the new premium is 110. Rate of change of delta or gamma is 0.0025 units for every 1 point change in the underlying. So you multiply the change in underlying and the gamma, you'll get the change in delta, right? So 0.0025 into 100 is 0.25. Therefore, the new delta will be 0.3 plus 0.3 was the old delta plus 0.25, which is equal to 0.55, right? And this is roughly the at the money option, right? So if you go back to this, 46,100 is where gold is trading. 46,250 was slightly out of the money. You add 100, it becomes 46,200. Therefore, this is at the money option, right? So that's how gamma helps us understand the change in delta. Now, just for your information.
So Karthik, here again, I mean, I just wanted to re-emphasize what you said. So the delta and gamma of an option are linked to a particular strike. So whenever your underlying is moving, depending on the delta, right, the premium is changing, right?
Absolutely.
Again, to what extent it will change is defined by your delta. So every strike, depending on your movement, will have its values continuously changing.
Correct. So going back to that, intrinsic attribute that I spoke about when we were discussing delta, every strike, think of it as a different car. Every car has different attributes. So every strike has different attributes, right? And these attributes are connected to the spot prices. As and when the spot price change, the attributes for all these strikes also changes.
To put it differently, I asked you this question earlier for the 10-1-10 strikes.
Yeah.
Can I plot the values in such a way if the spot is continuously changing? This is how the delta would be.
Absolutely.
Though it is not constant, but I can still plot it and keep saying this is what my delta would be.
Absolutely.
Can I do a similar exercise for gamma also?
Yeah, so that's exactly where I wanted to talk about.
Okay,
See,
please.
As and when the underlying changes, we now know that delta changes. We also know that the gamma changes. We know that the premium changes, and we now know that the delta also changes. Now, in reality, the gamma also changes, right? So this is the third order derivative. Okay, the change in gamma with respect to change in underlying is called the speed of the option. Okay, or it is called d gamma d spot. Okay, now you really, even if you are like a retail to semi-institutional trader, you really need not have to get into change into gamma unless and until you are like a heavy institutional trader managing millions of dollars. Then you may probably want to hedge gamma risk. But for all practical purposes, it may not be really advisable to get into the change into gamma, and therefore its impact on the premiums. Right?
Okay. So what we have done is for people who are interested to have an advanced session on options, Surendra Bhai, based on your request, what we have done is on the webinar link, we have created another link. So whoever wants to understand, like the way Karthik was saying, your gamma scalping or gamma hedging, we will be more than happy to have an exclusive one-on-one session, either at IBJA's office once the lockdown is over, or you want to do it through WebEx session or a Zoom or whatever. We'll be more than happy, not just for IBJA, any participant or any participant from the bullion industry. We are more than happy to work with them and educate them on the advanced concepts. Go ahead, Karthik, please.
Yeah.
Nagendra ji, just a minute. Our president Kothari ji has said that once the lockdown is over, the NSE should have one seminar for the bullion dealers in our boardroom at Zaveri Bazaar.
Done, sir.
So that also needs to be done.
Done, sir.
Yeah. So that's about gamma. That's the second, option Greek. The third one is the Vega. Now, before I talk about Vega, it's important to understand, what volatility is. So, excuse me. It's important to understand what volatility is and the different types of volatility that's prevalent in the markets. Volatility is a representation of risk, right? So I'm putting this in a very, very layman form. One can really deep dive into volatility. It will take 3 full days to just discuss volatility. But given the constraint of time, I'm just highlighting the most important points. Okay. So volatility is a representation of risk. It is usually expressed in a percentage, right? Higher the volatility, higher is the risk associated. Okay. For example, let's say I'll go back to the stock market example. Let's say Infosys volatility is 20%, and TCS volatility is 46%. I'm just giving you a rough example. From a volatility perspective, TCS is more risky than Infosys. if this were the true volatilities of these two companies, right? So volatility, what you need to appreciate here is one, it's a measure of risk. Two, it is expressed as a percentage, right? Now there are three different types of volatility which you need to understand. One is the historical volatility, right? Historical volatility is the volatility that a contract or an underlying asset would have experienced for n number of days. If I'm looking at last 52 weeks or 252 trading days, then I can calculate the historical volatility for these 252 days, right? So again, this is easily doable on Excel. Maybe if there is an advanced session, I'll be happy to share that Excel format. So historical volatility, what is the actual volatility that the underlying has experienced for a number of days, right? Implied volatility, or the IV, is the volatility you expect right now. Implied volatility is the volatility that the market expects right now to affect the underlying price, right? Forecasted volatility is what you can build, volatility forecasting models, and you can forecast what is the likely volatility in the coming days, right? Now, volatility forecasting is a very quant-heavy topic. Let's not get into that. But implied volatility is what you as a trader will have to pay attention to, because that is the volatility what the market expects as of today, right? Let's put that in a perspective. Let's assume that that there are heavy winds and thunderstorms happening in your city. Actually, as we speak, we are experiencing that in Bangalore. So whenever there is heavy wind and thunderstorm, there will be a surge in electric voltage, and because of the surge, there is a chance that your electrical appliances will get damaged. Right, the volatility, the surge in voltage will be erratic, and therefore there will be instability in the the electrical circuits in your house. Likewise, when volatility increases, the stock price or the commodity price starts to swing heavily, right? To put this in perspective, imagine a stock is trading at 100 rupees. Because there is an increased volatility, the same stock can suddenly start wildly behaving and trade anywhere between 90 to 110. With an increase in volatility, the swing in the price range within which it trades also increases. Now, imagine a situation: volatility has increased, the stock price suddenly comes to 90. Obviously, people who have written put options would be highly concerned, because their put option will be losing money. On the other hand, stock price suddenly surges to 110, right? All the call option writers at 110 will now be stressed about what is happening with their call options. The point that I'm trying to make here is, irrespective of call or put option, whenever there is an increase in volatility, there is an erratic behavior of the underlying price. Because of that, the premiums have a higher chance. The strike has a higher chance of expiring in the money, right? When an option expires in the money, the option writers are all in deep trouble. Remember, we discussed this a while ago. As an option writer, you want the option to transition to out of the money, not in the money. Now, when the volatility increases, price swing increases. Now, with the increase in price swing, the chance of an option expiring in the money increases, right? Now, remember when we spoke about Vishnu and Harish's example, the only way, in one of the situations, the only way Vishnu could entice Harish to pay, sell gold was by offering a higher premium from 1 lakh to, let's say, 2 lakh, right? Now, the only way you can compensate, you can entice a writer to write option when the volatility is increased, is by offering a higher premium. right? If you offer a higher premium, then the sellers may be enticed to sell those options to you. In other words, whenever there is an increase in volatility, the premium for both call and put option increases. Doesn't matter whether it's a call or a put, the behavior is the same. With the increase in volatility, the premiums of both call and put option increases. Rate at which the premium increases for every percentage change in volatility is captured by Vega, right? So that's what Vega helps you understand, right? I hope this concept is clear. I've not put any numbers here because this is a very straightforward concept. Let's say the Vega of an option is 2, then for every 1% change, the premium increases by 2.
Karthik, does Vega use the historic volatility?
Vega uses the implied volatility.
Okay, so you're not worried about how the metal or the stock has performed in the past. So you're going to.
Okay, so actually that's a brilliant question. I'll tell you why it's important. So let's say today the implied.
I'll tell you why. If you Surendra Mehtaji, you can talk about gold. So in the last 3 months, I mean, if we look at gold's last 1 year volatility, Ishank, you can also confirm. I think it is around 20% or 22%. And if we look at the COMEX options, the IV for a 1 month option is around 24 point whatever. I mean, the numbers can be plus or minus. So of late, the gold volatility has increased because of COVID, because of some delivery issues between London, flights not taking off, and COMEX participants pressing for delivery. So in this scenario, right, so there is an event which has happened because of which the volatility has increased. And you don't know when this event will end. So now I'm trying to price an option. What if the event comes to an end? Right? So do I have to give a weightage to the historic volatility when I'm using or assuming an implied vol in deciding on a premium? That's the question, Karthik.
Yeah. See, I'll tell you why, how these two volatility actually comes into play. So you said that historically gold's volatility has been around 20-21%, right? Now, without this reference, if I just tell you that the implied volatility for gold is 40% today. So just in isolation, implied volatility does not convey much. You need to compare this to what the volatility has been historically. Only then you get a perspective of whether today's implied volatility is higher or lower. On its own, it serves very little purpose, right? So you take today's implied volatility, reference it back to historical volatility. You kind of develop a perspective of where today's volatility is, right? And then you can build your trading strategy around that. In fact, like I said, volatility is a very huge concept on its own. There are things like volatility smile and volatility cones, which will help you, develop a perspective of where volatility is as of today, right? So, but let's not get into that. I think we are already running short of time. Maybe for some other day.
Karthik, to put it in simple terms, if let's say a stock moves between 70 to 130, vis-a-vis a stock which moves between 90 to 110, right? The first one is much more volatile
Absolutely.
than the second one. And when I'm pricing, suppose I get into an option, now obviously I will factor in the previous volatility and ensure that I price it adequately vis-a-vis the other one which has moved only 10% in the last 1 year, whatever.
Absolutely.
Correct,
Absolutely.
right?
Higher the volatility, higher the premium.
Perfect.
Right?
So and for first timers, since the implied vol computation, if they don't have any tools or mechanism in place, they can always look at the historic volatility.
Historic volatility, and we spoke about the Black-Scholes calculator, right? So
Perfect.
you can use Black-Scholes calculator to extract the current, when I mean extract, to figure out what is the current implied volatility of the strike you're considering. So you
Okay.
can use Black-Scholes calculator for that also.
So there is one question on IV. I mean, it's from a gentleman named Sandeep. How to calculate IV? I'm sure we can answer that. This is directly related to market forces and option prices. Depends on IV. This is similar to a chicken and egg problem. Just wanted to understand from a financial market perspective.
So see, in options, the answer to all questions goes back to Black-Scholes calculator. You can use Black-Scholes calculator to either calculate the fair price of an option by giving volatility as an input, or you take the market price that you see of an option that you see on your market watch, use that as an input in your Black-Scholes calculator, and get the value of get the implied volatility value. So you can use Black-Scholes calculator for either price or volatility, but not both.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, sure. So that's about Vega. The last Greek that I would like to talk about is the theta. Before we actually talk about theta, let's look at this example. For a minute, assume that you're preparing for a competitive exam. It could be CAT or GMAT or IIT JEE or whatever, right? So let's assume you're preparing for a competitive exam. The chance of you passing this exam is directly proportional to the preparedness of your preparedness, right? Now you will prepare well. When there is more time to study. For example, when you have 30 days to prepare, the likelihood of you passing this exam is very high, right? I understand 30 days may not be sufficient for JEE or CAT, but just to put this in perspective, more days, very high likelihood of passing, right? When you have instead of 30, if you have 20 days, there is still a higher amount of likelihood of you passing. Lesser days, for example, if you just went ahead and enrolled for the exam and you only have 5 days to study, then the chance of you passing is very low, right? So higher the number of days, higher is the likelihood of you passing the exam, right? Now, in the same way, place yourself in the options buyer's perspective. What is the probability of an option expiring in the money? Obviously, higher the time, higher the probability. Lower the time, lower is the probability of this option expiring in the money, right? So all I want you to remember at this point is more time, more probability. Less time, less probability of an option strike expiring in the money, okay? The option seller knows that when he sells the option early in the series, he's taking a lot of risk because there is more time to expiry. Now, remember, whenever an option seller knows that his risk has increased, he wants additional compensation in terms of premium. He wants a higher premium. Only if you offer him higher premium will he sell that option to you. With the passage of time, the option seller knows that the probability of an option expiring in the money is lower because there is less time to expire. So when time is reducing, his expectation of what to accept as premium also reduces. Higher the time, he expects more premium. Lower the time, he expects less premium. If you generalize this, with the lapse in time, the premium keeps on reducing, right? All else, if you keep it as equal, just with the passage of time, the expectation that the seller has in terms of premium keeps reducing because the probability of an option expiring in the money reduces. This is called the time decay of a premium or the theta decay of a premium, right? If you look at it from a graphical point of view, this is how it looks. On the x-axis, you have the number of days to expiry. When on the left-hand side, right? So the number of days to expiry is 120, which is maximum number of days. So when there are maximum number of days, the premium is also very high. In this case, 350. As and when the number of days starts to decline from 80 to 60 to 40, the premium expectation also comes down. Now, while it is a gradual fall in the start of the series, when there are fewer and fewer and fewer days, the graph suddenly takes a vertical shape, right? That is to say that the effect of time decay when you have very less time drastically changes as you approach expiry, right? So theta is a measure that helps you identify the time decay, right? For example, let's say the theta of an option trading at 55.75, then all else equal, just because by virtue of 1 day passing, the same option will be trading at 55 minus 0.75, which is 54.25 the very next day. This loss in premium is attributed to time decay. Theta value increases as time to expiry shrinks, right? So if the same option, if we were looking at 1 day to expiry, the theta would from 0.75 probably can be 3 or 4 or something like that. Lesser the time to expiry, higher the theta, right? So that's exactly what I just mentioned. So that is theta. So I hope all the
Karthik, one question.
yeah.
So, if you're talking about an OTM on option which does not have a profit element, the intrinsic value, right? So, how does theta come into play, or how are the premiums placed for a bi-monthly contract? Because you showed the graph that longer the duration, right?
Yeah.
Longer the theta factor vis-a-vis a monthly contract. So because the reason why I am asking you is that NSE is launching a monthly contract,
Correct.
whereas you already have the incumbent exchange having a bi-monthly contract, right? So just to clear those differences, does theta come into play when you're pricing a bi-monthly contract vis-a-vis a monthly contract?
Yeah. So see, now the thing is, shorter the expiry, like a bi-monthly contract, will have a much higher theta decay
Okay.
compared to a monthly contract. So if I was a trader, if I have to choose between a bi-monthly and a monthly, I'm much better off trading a monthly contract, because the all else equal, the loss in terms of time decay is much lower in a monthly contract,
Perfect.
right? So,
Perfect, Karthik. Perfect.
so I'll end this session with the last question. Nagendra, if you can please read this out for me, because the corner is.
So Karthik, before I read this question, tomorrow when you start off your session, the first slide, if you can just see, we talked multiple times about the options calculator, the Black-Scholes model. So what are the input parameters? If we can just show a screenshot of any one online calculator, what are the parameters that we have to input?
Sure.
Right? So we don't have to recommend any specific calculator, just the parameters, so that it is like revisiting the entire concept, and also people will understand that if they have to price an option, these are the fields that they need to know.
Sure, I will do that.
Coming to the difficult question, gold, 46,250 call option is trading at 75 premium. Delta of the option is 0.5. Theta is 4.5. After a day, the gold increases by 100 points. What is the expected premium? Assume volatility remains constant. Option A is 70. Option B is 210. Option C is 120.5. Option D is 55.5. Question.
So that's the third question, and with this third question, I will end the session today. So tomorrow, like you suggested, we will run through an options calculator, basic inputs, and how to use a calculator, and then we will discuss few trading strategies.
So Yeah, see, otherwise, most of the questions are will get responded. People have asked if whether they can have recording of all these webinars. Yes, the webinars are getting recorded. We will share it with each one of you through IPJA, and or we will put it on our website. And Surendraji, you have any questions for the day?
Yeah. Yes. Suppose a trader is buying an option, call option, and suppose the price is 46,000. The option is available, which is a 1 month option, which is available for say 400 rupees. So his cost becomes 46,400. Now he buys an option and he realizes that the gold prices are not likely to move in a big way. So he may lose 400 rupees. So which is the way by which he can reduce the premium which he has already paid? Like, can he think of buying one put option also to reduce his premium size? And what is the risk involved in that?
Actually, the answer to that question is in your question itself, because you said he expects, after he buys the option, he doesn't expect much movement in the gold price, but he's stuck with a existing position, right? So the way he can deal with this is because there is not much movement. That means to say, if he sells an option, with the passage of time, the premiums will reduce and he will his sell option will translate to a profit, right? So all he has to do is choose an appropriate call option and sell it and pocket that premium, hoping that the premium that he pockets will compensate for the premium that he has paid. With the passage of time, the premium reduces and he can keep that as a compensation.
इस particular case में the trader thinks that prices will go up, but after buying the call option उसको लगता है कि प्रीमियम 400 रुपया तो बढ़ेगा ही नहीं, गोल्ड का प्राइस 400 रुपीस बढ़ ही नहीं सकता. Now he is stuck, so he decides कि वो सामने put बेच देता है and he try to reduce his premium. Yeah. So is that okay?
The thing is,
is that a perfect strategy?
There is no strategy is foolproof. That is for sure. So, but what he has to do here is find ways in which he can minimize his loss or completely recover his loss. One is either he can sell a put or he can go to higher strikes of the same call option and sell that. So the idea is he's paid money for premium. So he has to ensure that there is some credit coming into his account by selling an option.
Okay, got you.
Can I add something here, Karthik?
Sure, please.
सुरेंद्र जी, कार्तिक जी जो बोल रहे हैं सेल करेंगे ताकि जो आपने प्रीमियम पे किया है बाई करने के टाइम में,
क्या गौरी,
उसका दबाव जो है आप पे ऊपर कम हो. अगर आप दूसरा पुट करना चाहेंगे तो आपका और भी, क्योंकि प्रीमियम पे करेंगे आप खरीदने के टाइम में पुट और एक, तो आपका वो खर्चा और बढ़ेगा, कम नहीं होगा.
Okay, I got you.
Surendra ji, we will send you an example. There are multiple ways by which you can actually cut the position. As Gauri was explaining, if you again buy another put, it will add to your cost. Your position is nullified. But we will give you something where, depending on the option prices available, depending on the demand and supply, what is the best way to close the position? We will help you out by giving you an example.
ये पूरा सेमिनार 2 दिन सुनने के बाद मुझे काफी लोगों ने फोन करके ये पूछा है, कार्तिक जी, दिस क्वेश्चन इज फॉर यू, मैं कभी भी अटक जाता हूँ. जैसे जब वो फ्यूचर्स करता है तो डेफिनेटली फ्यूचर से तो बहुत बेटर है ये ऑप्शन स्ट्रेटजी, विच एवरीवन इज रियलाइजिंग नाउ. लेकिन उसको ये डर लगता है कि मेरा 400 रुपए का जो मैं प्रीमियम दे रहा हूँ वो भी मैं कैसे कम कर सकता हूँ. मुझे 400 रुपए का भी रिस्क नहीं लेना है, मुझे बहुत कम रिस्क लेना है. तो वो सामने पुट बेचना चाहता है.
Correct. So in fact, Surendra ji, when we discuss few strategies tomorrow, you will realize that at the time of buying only, there are strategies where you can ensure that the outflow is much lesser, right? So these are called spread strategies, which we'll discuss tomorrow. So you can initiate a spread so that you, at the starting only, you reduce paying, instead of 400, maybe to 250 or 300, like that. So we'll discuss that. But just to give a heads up, whenever you try to, minimize your risk is reduced, but you're also minimizing the profit potential, which is absolutely okay, because a trader should actually focus more on risk management than always thinking about what is the profit that he'll earn. So because once your risk is contained and if you're consistent, in the longer term you'll always make money.
अनदर क्वेश्चन जो कुछ लोगों ने मुझसे पूछा कि अगर मैं 100 ग्राम के 10 पुट लेता हूं और मुझे फाइनली डिलीवरी आती है, तो मुझे 100 ग्राम की डिलीवरी आएगी या 1 किलो का बार भी डिलीवरी में आ सकता है?
That I think
100 grams. 100 grams into 10.
And one more interesting question which I asked yesterday also, लेकिन मैं वापस, नागेंद्र जी, आई थिंक कल आप नहीं थे, ये क्वेश्चन मैं वापस पूछना चाहता हूँ. एक 100 ग्राम का ये हमारा कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है और एक 1 kg का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है. उस दोनों के बीच में कुछ ना कुछ प्राइस डिफरेंस होगा. If I convert it into 1 kg, 10 contracts of 100 grams and 1 contract of 1 kg, उसके बीच में कुछ ना कुछ डिफरेंस होगा. तो क्या मैं एक जगह पे ये लेके दूसरी जगह वो बेच सकता हूँ, उसमें मुझे कुछ प्रॉफिट होगा या कुछ अपॉर्चुनिटी उसमें मुझे मिलेगी या नहीं मिलेगी? ये क्वेश्चन बहुत लोगों ने पूछा है.
Surendra ji, as we all know, arbitrage opportunity comes into play when there is a mispricing, right? So for us to get into take advantage of this arbitrage opportunity, we should very well understand how the data has moved in the past. If you're looking at a 1 kilo metal ka price vis-a-vis 100 grams, until unless you establish a perfect correlation is one, and a model to say that this is how X basis upar niche chal raha hai, and there is a mean reversion concept, right? At any point of time, it is going to come back. And since it is a physically delivered commodity, you have to take into consideration how the demand and supply mechanics are working at that point of time. But to answer it in simple terms, arbitrage opportunities will definitely exist. So that I'm sure that, whoever is interested to understand more on it can register for the advanced training sessions, and will be more than happy to come up with certain strategies where I'll be comfortable to show strategies where the 1 kilo is also with NSE and 100 grams is also with NSE. Because from a costing perspective,
I'm talking about same arbitrage in the same exchange.
Yes.
Many bullion dealers are saying that normally the price of 100 grams will be slightly higher than the price of 1 kg. So let us say there is in 1 kg there is and 10 100 gram bar and 1 kg, there will be difference of approximately 1,000 rupees. So this 1,000 rupees, one can easily make this 1,000 rupees if this opportunity exists. And whether the contracts, both the contracts will mature on the same day or both the deliveries will take place on the same day or not, that needs to be understood.
So, Surendra ji, it is like this. The kilobar is a bi-monthly contract. The 100 grams is a monthly contract. And as far as the settlement is concerned, both of them will get settled on the same day, the monthly after the tender period. So, but if you ask whether I will net a 1 kilo vis-a-vis 100 grams, because both are two different commodities, right? It is not fungible. But from an arbitrage perspective, if you have to pocket the financial difference, what you say, the 1,000 rupees difference is very well there for us to go and grab it. But if more arbitrages come in, that 1,000 will actually gradually keep reducing, right? Because on one side, somebody will continuously keep playing.
No, it will, it can reduce, but not to the extent, because there is a cost involved in cutting 1 kg bar to 100 gram bar. So that cost itself is
the additional refining cost. Yes. Additional refining cost. Absolutely correct, sir.
Okay. Good. So this is one good opportunity which the bullion dealer can have. And
Thank you,
as the
sir.
market grows, we'll understand.
Thank you, sir. So we will come to we have come to the end of the session. So I formally would like to thank again Karthik, Surendra ji, and all my colleagues who have helped me in moderating today's session. And I also thank the audience for patiently joining even on the third day. Today we have more than 500 participants who have logged in. And tomorrow being the last day, Karthik, are we going to talk about trading strategies and some hedging examples?
Yeah, we will talk about trading strategies.
And we start the session with the basic parameters required for Black-Scholes calculator.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll do that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
God bless you all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening.
Yeah, bye-bye.